faster. Boom, I'm going to the maximum. I'm going to the maximum. I'm going to the maximum.
Okay, so good afternoon. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Jasmine, Ida, and Edison to this panel. So I think our task this afternoon is to talk about DeFi, right? And how your experiences when it comes to applying this from a FI perspective. So first of all, maybe we can have our speakers talk a little bit about themselves. Let's start with Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Max. Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, so great to be here, and thank you for having me. My name is Jasmine. I come from KL, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I've been a banker for more than 20 years. As I was sharing, I've been on that side, and I decided to join the revolution in blockchain before DeFi was even a word. So in a sum, that's what I am. To a great extent, why? I'm an activist in heart, and I'll share a little bit about that later if the topic comes up. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Jasmine. Ida.
Hi, my name is Ida, and I am a co-founder and the chief legal officer of Fluidity.money. It's a DeFi incentives-based protocol layer that sits on the blockchain, which is Ethereum. What we do is that we help to grow the exchanges and the traffic and the volume in the DeFi market by incentivizing users for just simply moving their assets. Aside from that, I am also the president of the Women in Blockchain Asia, which Jasmine is also part of it. And I flew here from, I think, Malaysia or something. I'm from Australia, and then I moved to Malaysia, and I've been around. So yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chai.
Good afternoon. My name is Edison. I'm the executive director of Seedin, which is a crowdfunding platform, a P2B crowdfunding platform for small to medium businesses. And we matchmake them for their working capital needs with our network of investors around the world. So we provide a decentralized approach to SME financing through matchmaking our network of investors with the SMEs that are in need of working capital. So aside from that, I also co-founded a startup called Artifact, which is a NFT marketplace for fine arts as the predominant product. So we'll probably also share a bit of that later on. Thank you.
Yeah, great. So my first question is, so almost all of us here have like at least a background in traditional finance. I want to know your thoughts on what makes doing financing or being in the DeFi space different from the traditional space. What are the advantages? And like for example, for Jasmine, maybe to start things up, why are you moving? I mean, you've worked for traditional FIs. I wanted to understand what got you to explore DeFi.
So I'm also currently, just to share a little bit more, apart from being a co-founder of Women in Blockchain Asia together with Ida, I've also co-founded a self-sovereign identity project in Malaysia and a game development company also sitting out of Kuala Lumpur. Now, why did I jump out of a 20-over-year, very lucrative, traditional finance career into bootstrapping startup blockchain career is simply because I see the promise of blockchain in terms of democratizing wealth distribution through the data that is being managed. And that's one of the inspirations why we are moving into the self-sovereign identity framework. And I believe increasingly that's going to be a great adoption for that. Because today, you hear about the WhatsApp hack. Now, if you own your own data, even when a platform gets hacked, your data is with you because you have your own data wallet, your identity wallet. So why did I move over? Because of an activist heart. In TradFi, actually in all centralized organizations, there's just too much centralization of power, whether it's on one committee or a person. And that's where it gets bad. Traditional finance has gone through millennia of evolution, and until 2000, early 2000, you still see scandals of collusion, of corruption, of those who are in position of power that's meant to safeguard the system, actually using the system for their own benefit, despite the fact that we've already put in compliance requirements, we've put in rules, we've put in all the necessary punishment to say you're not supposed to do certain things, and still it's being done.
Thank you for that, Jasmine. But just to follow up on that, and I don't mean to put you on the spot either, because Jasmine mentioned about that being in a decentralized environment makes it less prone to corruption and all of these possible issues when you deal with a centralized organization. But let's use FTX as an example, right? They're also in the space. They seem to endeavor themselves in enhancing the crypto space, the Web3 space. What do you see went wrong? And why do we still see issues like this when blockchain is supposed to solve governance issues like this?
Thank you. You are the second person who asked me the FTX fiasco. So here it is. Newsflash. FTX is actually a centralized exchange. It is not a decentralized exchange. It's not Aave, it's not Uniswap, it's not Compound as we understand it to be. So what happened in FTX? FTX, because it's centralized, just like Binance, it's centralized. You don't really have the transparency. When I say transparency, is that the ability to just go to Etherscan or go to CoinGecko and then pull up the information and know the wallets, where the assets move, how much it moves to, from what destination. You don't have that because they hold that. And the way they exchange is all is within their own governance, which is not being transparent to you. So FTX, under this premise, essentially over leverage. They used basically customer funds and started investing and speculate. And when that did not produce the yield or produce the results that it has, the domino effect starts to cascade. And that's where they were caught, literally with their pants down in that sense. And again, so having that background, okay, and then put it in there, let's compare it vis-a-vis with a decentralized exchange. So out of the FTX fiasco, you heard of the word proof of reserve, proof of reserve, proof of reserve. Okay? So what happens is that all these centralized exchanges says that, okay, we are now going to publish and show to the users how much we have on our treasury, how much we have on our token, our wallets, to show that we're cash rich or we're okay? But that's still not enough, because the thing is that that information has to be fed from the same system, which is closed. Now, why does Aave, why does Uniswap doesn't need proof of reserve? Because like I said, pull up the CoinGecko, type up Etherscan, okay, and then just type the token name and whack it up, and it just comes up like that. It's there already. So I just want to correct that, okay? There is a massive difference between it. Don't confuse FTX as a decentralized exchange.
If I can add on a little bit more. Now, I know out of the FTX fiasco, whole world is yelling out for regulators to come and protect the users and so on and so forth. Let me just put it clearly. If you look at the 100-year evolution of the financial system that humanity and society has gone through, What is happening now in the blockchain financial ecosystem is just being shortened to 5 years. Why? Because of technology, because it's faster and information flow is faster, but human behavior is the same. And that's why the Bitcoin blockchain came into the space, because it is fully decentralized, not supposed to be under the control of one person or a small group of people. And that's where the genesis of the ethos of DeFi comes. And so if you have a truly DeFi entity, you don't need regulators. Why? As what Ida was saying, the minute you pull out a wallet, a token, you pull out all of that, every single transaction down to the last fraction of token is transparent. It is open for the entire community to look, to vet, to query. Now, you won't need a regulator to look at that when you have millions, billions of eyes looking at it. The issue with centralized finance, whether it is placed on the blockchain or on a centralized server on SAS and whatever not, is still the same thing, human behavior. So unless that behavior is open to scrutiny by the entire community, all amount of regulation in the last 100 years will show you, culminating to Lehman's fall, 200-year-old banking financial institution will tell you, however you want to regulate it, how tight you want to screw those screws, is just a question of time. That's why I'm in the blockchain revolution, because I see the blockchain technology, when used properly in a fully decentralized manner, will self-regulate, not because we are good people, we are still greedy, but all of us are looking at that chain to make sure that I'm not getting cheated. So the invisible hand of Adam Smith, if you study macroeconomics, is still there. At work, except safeguarding. That's it.
Well, thank you for your inputs on that, Jasmine and Ida. But for some people, like taking out the regulators may be like too liberal of an idea to like jump into. So Edison here, he's also part of Fintech Alliance Philippines, and the group has been working closely with regulators. I wanted to know your thoughts and react to how blockchain revolutionizes the regulatory landscape and your experiences with dealing with regulators.
The ideology of having a blockchain-based technology is in the spirit of having a decentralized approach and a true ownership of your own data, of your own control. However, of course, that doesn't, I mean, there's always a balance that we strive for between regulators and industry practitioners and technology providers. So take Fintech Alliance, for example, which I'm involved in. We work heavily, we provide a bilateral channel between industry practitioners, technology providers, and our regulators to meet halfway in terms of how the industry would like to be regulated or deregulated in that sense, but and how the regulators would like to see some form of transparency. Because I think transparency is really what drives trust, right? So the idea of building the trust is really fundamentally based on transparency. So how do we establish this transparency? We can, one, adapt the technology like blockchain DeFi to establish that, which Jasmine and Ida has mentioned. But on the other hand, on the part of the regulator, they also would require transparency. And I think one of the key factors for us to really convene on that is coming up with rules and regulations that are at the same time flexible enough to promote the transparency, but at the same time not choking enough to rule out the freedom in the true spirit of, for example, a DeFi. So take Seedin, for example. We are a crowdfunding platform. So we are somewhat between a traditional banking, a traditional finance, and a DeFi wherein everything is transparent. So the crowdfunding platform, it's at least the way that we operate is, number one, we're regulated by SEC. So we have a crowdfunding license in which we need to report all the projects that we crowdfund to our regulator, which is Securities and Exchange Commission of the Philippines. But at the same time, we allow a transparency of all our projects to our investors around the world by letting them know on the information of the project that they're investing in, as well as the collateral that they're investing in, and ensuring that it doesn't get over-leveraged. So it's not a purely based on technology, but rather a combination of technology and the human factor, the human due diligence, and the transparency in reportorial to the regulators that allows us to have an environment where the trust between our regulator and our investors and our borrowers are established. So whether or not that is a solution towards a truly healthy DeFi/regulator environment is subject to how the market reacts to it. But I think people are really putting their heads together, whether it be the pure DeFi evangelists or whether it be the regulators. I think no one can deny the fact that DeFi, decentralized finance, is the way to go. Traditional banks are acknowledging that. Alternative finance players like us are going to that direction. And DeFi providers, automated market makers, are already there, right? So it's a matter of moving towards that direction. And that's where everyone is going to.
Okay, thank you for that, Ed. Ida, I want to circle back to you. So we talk about the benefits of like moving towards this direction, right? From centralized to decentralized. But one of the key questions about blockchain in general is the robustness of the technology and its scalability. There's been already a lot of initiatives that's being done to like make Ethereum more accessible, cheaper, and all of these things. Second layer technologies built on top of them to make it more accessible. How far are we from bringing this mainstream?
Okay, that is actually quite a hard question to answer. Honestly, from where we're sitting to here now, it is still not entirely there. Okay. It does require an amount of technicality, know-how that is uniquely native to crypto in order to access all these things that he just mentioned. But the robustness of the scalability that you were talking about, okay, the technology is now currently being experimented, and it's also being tokenized and staked. So for example, how many of you are aware of Optimism and Arbitrum? Anyone know about that? Good, all right. So that is a very powerful way to actually control and build upon the layer one, because it rolls out a transaction, so the transaction computation is done on a different level, and then whatever that is coming up, whatever is the output of that is then spit back onto the main chain, so therefore it gets transacted faster. Currently, just imagine a road. Everything is done there. The traffic jam is there. The road, the road fixtures in there. So then just imagine you take a certain component out there. So this analogy works. As you can see it, it works. It makes sense. Now, how do people access it? And that's your question. And the question to answer that is that, unfortunately, for now, it requires you to know how to be a challenger. It requires you to know how to be a person who stake it. And all these are very native, very unique to DeFi. And it makes it hard for a normal person to get it. So from where I'm sitting here, I don't think it's going to happen this year. Next year, maybe. But that's a lot of frictions to go through. Yeah.
Got it. But that's usually where the opportunity is, right? We've seen the space grow over the last few years. And Jasmine, just to get back to you, I know you've been looking into a number of projects, and you've invested also in a few projects in the Web3 space. What is like the most promising things you've been seeing in the space today?
In all honesty, some of you may not like the answer. The falling of entities like FTX and Luna, because when big incidences like this happens to the ecosystem, it does two things immediately. First, it attracts a lot of users and makes them aware, and therefore the need to be educated comes forth. Straight away into their mind, they say, I need to understand a little bit more. So education takes place, one. Two, it immediately informs you of the weakness in the system, which is what Luna was, and the human character that has a hand in bringing down what was supposed to be a promised system, a promised stability. So that this year, I know it's been painful, heck, it's been really painful, but as an industry, globally, I think it is a necessity because a lot more education is needed, a lot more understanding. You know, we always say DYOR, do your own research, but not enough is happening. The thing about doing your own research is not that big a deal, more the FOMO. That's where a lot of people are pushed into taking positions that now are unraveling very badly. So these are things that has existed for a long time. It needs to change. It needs to be corrected, and I think that's what's happening.
You were about to say something?
Perhaps I can also answer your earlier question with regards to mass adaptation, right? Maybe I think there are four main factors that will drive towards the mass adaptation of blockchain-based technologies like DeFi. The first would be accessibility. So the accessibility in terms of whether on what platform it is available, on what device, because I mean, in the first world countries like Singapore, for example, internet is not an issue, right? It's available to everyone. But in the Philippines or other countries, for some places, there are still people who don't have basic access to internet. So internet access, accessibility on whether it's on Android or iOS or websites will affect the willingness of the general public to go and adapt that technology. Of course, that takes time, but accessibility is important. That's first. And second is affordability. So when you have access to the technology, how much will it cost you to be on board? How much will it cost you to send money from person A to person B? How much will it cost a business to borrow money on that platform? So these are economic reasons for the adaptation, because the cost or gas fees, for example, how much it will take for me to mint an NFT. So these are economic reasons that will affect the willingness of someone to adapt that technology. The third would be advocacy. So advocacy comes in the form of digital education, forums, events like these. A lot of information is needed for us to adapt or change the mindset. So it's about paradigm shift, right? It's about people's doubts on, we kept mentioning FTX, but of course, along the way of digital transformation, there are going to be, we have seen time and time again, right? There are always going to be incidents, there are always going to be, but for everything that's worth, right? People are going to learn from that, and then they're going to adapt and change for the better. So advocacy, and then lastly is transparency or trust. So trust is, again, the currency of any financial platform, any financial institution. And that's where the trust has to be established through transparency, through proper regulation, again, we can debate on that, but on the extent of being regulated. But the trust, people's trust are on both ends, right? On being transparent and also on having a properly regulated platform. So those are the 4 takeaways. For
Ida, I know
I
you've
know,
you've
yeah.
wanted to react to what Edison
Okay,
mentioned.
I'm a DeFi person. Okay, DeFi is basically the financing in the blockchain. How do you utilize concepts of finance in the blockchain? Let me put to you a real thing. Okay, in all decentralized lending platforms, you always in the over collateralize it for security purposes. Okay, and that's where the problem is. How things are moving forward, we are talking about disruptive technology. Majority of you have learned about soul-bound tokens. And that is the new disruptive DeFi technology. Because with soul-bound tokens, it attaches value to reputation, which means potentially, okay, you now have another set class of value which is tied and attached to your token, your general token. Under this premise, there is nothing to actually stop you to create a liquidity pool that you can under-collateralize it because your reputational value hedge your risk. So that is the disruptive nature that is moving forward on the DeFi aspect. So I'm really excited about that one because, yeah, I think from a DeFi part, I'm so into exploring creating liquidity pools on that one.
Yes.
So, soul-bound token, purpose-driven digital currencies, all these new buzzwords that are coming in, I don't have an exceptional affinity to soul-bound token because I see that there are certain portions of manipulation. Purpose-driven digital currency is another buzzword for whoever that drives that currency to have absolute control over your spending. So if you sit in a location where they decided to outlaw smoking, suddenly your money cannot buy cigarettes. I don't know how that sits with some, but I know with others that's an absolute no-no in terms of freedoms. So blockchain is an enabling technology. Edison keeps talking about trust being the currency for commerce, for platforms to transact. And the blockchain is supposed to be a trustless machine where you can operate on it without having to trust it. But that's no longer true because in a closed environment blockchain, it can still be manipulated as we can see throughout this year. So at the end of the day, you hear all this jargon, please pick up Google, JD, Baidu, wherever you're from, and Google it. Do your own research because there's a lot of things happening in the space. One of the newer things that are coming through is how do you monetize your personal data? And that's where I was sharing that when you own your data and you release your data, you get paid for it. Today, Facebook, Meta holds your data. Every time they release your data, they get paid. You see nothing. You're the collateral. You're the product. So we're talking about a future where you own yourself. Now, how are you going to participate in that future if you don't understand how it's being done and how you should be paid and how you are going to be valued? So this is the thing again. When we sit on stage, one of the pet peeves I have is acronyms. You know, DYOR, what the heck? Do your own research. Let's not make it, I'm not intelligent. None of us here are more intelligent than anybody else. It's just that we are in this field, we've been exposed. So we get lazy. That's why abbreviation, which shouldn't be the case. But please, that's the main thing. To move into a decentralized, fully democratized future, where truly data empowerment and you are in your own hands, every single one of us needs to participate, just like a democracy.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so we only have a few seconds left. So I think just to wrap things up, I just want to ask the panelists in one word for everyone, okay? Make sure it's one word, guys. What should be like prioritized to bring Web3 to the masses, to make it accessible, or to make it how we envisioned it to be? What should be like that baby step that we should take? Okay.
Safe.
Safe,
Well, I've said it already. Trust.
trust,
UI.
UI. Okay, thank you everyone. So that's all the time we have today.